Good evening, Vancouver. Welcome back to Canucks After Dark, Monday, May 27th. Our first show since, I guess our eulogy show after the Canucks have lost. So our first one where we don't have any Canucks hockey to talk about, but we do have the Dallas Stars, our team, always been our team, up 2-1 over the Oilers after a big comeback win tonight. Which is obviously not going to be the primary topic of our show tonight. We're going to be previewing the offseason, and that's been, the Canucks got knocked out a week ago today, and we have had a lot of discourse online, whether it's press conference drama or whether it's contract projections, who's going to stick around, who's going to go, some new names entering into the fold. If you're looking at like guys like Brendan Dillon doing an interview on Donnie and Dolly today. So we got quite a bit to talk about. We'll give our thoughts around, what this Canucks offseason might look like. But as always, I am joined by my co-host, Canuck Clay. How are we doing today, Clay?
Hey, Parker. Yeah, it's so funny that I forced myself to remind myself that we actually did a show Monday night after Game 7. I rushed home from the game. You gave me 15 minutes. You bought me some time. And yeah, so you're right. We've actually done a show since the end of the season, technically, but you're right. With the media availability on Thursday, we got reporters fighting with players. We got guys wanting to come here, guys rejecting contract offers. So we got a lot to talk about. And I was thinking we should probably do that for today's show. And then we'll save our contest wrap up for like the dog days of June or July or something like that. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, that's going to be sort of our plan. I think maybe we start by talking about existing guys, and I'll do the old cap friendly to make sure that we don't miss anybody. So we can go through the list.
9 UFAs, I think. 9. That's crazy.
9 UFAs. There's going to be, and then of course the one RFA, or I guess a couple RFAs. Seelov's an RFA, Hronek's an RFA.
Yeah.
It's there's going to be a lot of turnover. Like this team is going to look a lot different next year, which is kind of exciting, but also kind of concerning because was it this group that just caught lightning in a bottle? Was it? Is it like, oh, hey, the management team picked up a bunch of guys who were useful and they're going to just keep doing that year over year, which is, that's going to be the real question of the offseason.
I'm with you. And thank you, Daniel, for supporting us for the last 3 months. We appreciate it very much. Yeah. And I think the one thing that's come out loud and clear, just Parker, from people I'm talking to, is people trust Alvin and Rutherford. They've systematically revamped this whole roster in a span of 18 months. So I know we're going to lose maybe up to 4 or 5, maybe even more guys, but you're right. I'm kind of with you. I'm excited. You got to turn over a team. Obviously we're not good enough. We didn't get past the second round. So I trust these guys. That's the bottom line for me.
Yeah. They've absolutely earned it. Right. I mean, you look at the deals that they've made over the past, like you said, 18 months pretty much. And they're all like, they're all decent, right? Like you go back and look at last year's free agency, right? You have Niels Höglander signing that 2-year RFA deal at 1.1 a year. So that'll be a really valuable contract coming into this next season.
Yeah.
You have the Pius Suter deal, 2 years at 1.6 per. That's going to be a really valuable deal going to next season. But the 1-year guys, right? So Teddy Bluger at just under 2. You had Ian Cole, obviously at $3 million. You have Carson Soucy, 3 years at 3.25. And I think he's, definitely played up to that. The Mikheyev deal, I know it was the previous year, but that one hurts a little bit. I realized I wasn't sorting by signing date. But then there's other guys like, obviously Matt Irwin doesn't really matter. Noah Juleson, 2 years at 7.75, and he's a fine, number 7-8. So yeah, like they made, they signed a bunch of guys, and just looking at signings, they sort of earned some of that trust for sure.
Yeah, I just realized, Parker, while you might not have sorted right, I just realized that I completely messed up my nameplate. Do you want me pop in and out, and fix it, or you don't care?
You're fine.
Okay, I have Canuck Clay twice. You guys know who I am.
I think it's been there forever. It's been a long time.
But back to your point, and we've always said this because we think we're smart hockey people. Yeah, you need guys to outplay their contracts, and especially when you're in a cap crunch, which the Canucks are. They always seem to be. They made it work this year. But yeah, I know it's not the priority, but I would love a Podkolzin to step up. I love Höglander to continue as a good player from the first half of the season. There's so many kind of finds. You're exactly right. Juleson could be our third right shot defenseman, and he makes $800,000. That's awesome. That's awesome. You need lots of guys like that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Fangirl with the
wow.
$7 donation. Thank you very much. Saying I feel like the
Yeah.
Canucks wouldn't have got past Dallas anyways. That was a vibe that I sort of got. But again, once you're Final Four, it's one of those any given
Yeah.
Sunday type of things. And
Yeah. Thank
Edmonton
you,
looked
fan.
dangerous today, but thank you very much.
You know what's so crazy, Parker? And they were talking about it to Ryan Nugent Hopkins. I heard it on the Sportsnet 650. But just the eye test, there's hardly any hitting, or at least I can't think of any hitting in this Edmonton Dallas because they're just skating like crazy. And there's such a contrast to it certainly wasn't a slog. It was very, very intense, but a lot of hitting, a lot of mucky with Vancouver, Edmonton. And these two teams are just skating like the wind.
Yeah, the Canucks are a much different play style. Very, very structure heavy.
Yeah.
Dallas has a lot of, skill depth.
Oh,
But yeah, jumping back to looking
yeah.
at, roster stuff here, right? Like you said, the Canucks have 9 UFAs coming into this season, which is a lot, right? If you can have 22 guys on your roster, right? Like that's 40% basically of your roster is able to get turned over, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is 9 UFAs and of course 2 RFAs in Filip Hronek and Artur Shilovs and just $26 million of cap space, which is a lot. There's a lot of room to maneuver there, but not enough room to bring everybody back. There's going to have to be some sacrifices made.
Correct. Because you factor in PD now, his salary. I know you counted for this, but remember, guys, his salary shoots up by $4 million this year. And then you have Ekman and Larson's buyout goes from 150 grand to 2.4 million or whatever. So there's all these, the Pettersson's not dead money. He's obviously supposed to be a really good player, but that OEL thing, we got to remember, we took advantage of it this season. So there's just simply not going to be enough money to bring back 9 guys, but I don't think they want to bring back all 9. Do you? No, there's like 4 or 5 4 that I think won't come back for sure.
Yeah. And do we know what the cap's doing next year? It's supposed to go up to like 87.7, I think, is the projected.
That's not bad.
And I think that's the number Cap Friendly's using. It is.
Okay.
That's their projection at the very least.
Right.
And then they're projecting it to go to 92 million the following year.
Oh.
So about a, $8.5 million jump from this year to 2 years from now, if it does, pan out that way.
Right.
Right. So definitely some room for, but every team gets that room, right? And salaries are going to go up because of that. So it doesn't matter as much, but it's going to make, Quinn Hughes' contract look even better, for example, for the couple of years that it has left at that point. So
I say we do this in one of 2 ways. We either do it by forwards and then defensemen, right? And then we can kind of apples to apples, or we kind of lop off the 2 or 3 guys that we don't think we even have to talk about because we don't think they're coming back. And then we go in order of priority. Like, what do you want to do?
I think we should let's go through the forwards first and then go through the D.
Sure.
Like we said, we got $26 million to play with.
All right.
And it starts at Teddy Bluger. He's the first one on the list here. Like I said before, made $1.9 million last year. He will turn 30 this offseason. He's never, his career high cap hit was $2.2 million is 2 years under that Pittsburgh deal. And then of course you got 1.9 this year. What do you think the odds are that they try to keep Teddy Bluger around? 28 points this year.
Yeah. To me, I had him in my priority list as number 4 or 5, to be honest with you, Parker, of all the like cross position. But I think they love how he can play in all situations. I think they love how he can kill penalties, and he's a leader, and he's a former Pittsburgh guy. So is he a one and done? I don't think so. I think I'm giving it 55 to 60% that he's back. What do you say?
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty fair. Projection, and these are all from AFP Analytics that I found on Twitter here. They project that Bluger should be around 2 years, 2.1 million.
Is this site good? Like, I know we've referenced it before.
I don't know.
I have no. Well, I'm going to pull up a site too that. No, I'm just kidding.
It's just the only reference I have.
Okay, that's good.
So I think this is a decent number to use. It's a consultant firm apparently, but
okay.
Who knows how reputable they are?
All good. I'm fine if he comes back at 2 million, like more or less 2 million. I'm fine.
Yeah, I think that's about fair for your 4C.
Okay, so Parker and Clay, not like a hesitant check mark, but a check mark to the Bluger side.
Yeah.
Okay.
The big one, or one of the big ones, of course, is Dakota Joshua. This was obviously a fantastic find for the Canucks, right? Signed him for 2 years, $825,000 per year. In that time, 55 points over 2 seasons, scored 18 goals this year, was very good in the playoffs, at least especially in the first round, but 8 points in 13 games in the postseason. Just glowing reviews all the way around. I think we're all in an agreement. He's turning 29 this offseason. He just turned 28 2 weeks ago. He's probably going to get paid.
Yeah. So start of the season, I don't know about you. I was thinking, he made this year, what, under 100, right? Sorry, under $1 million? Yeah, 825.
Yeah.
So even 3x that, 2.5 is a substantial, like three times. But then that was what he started the season at. And then now I've heard numbers upwards of 3.5 to 4. That's I don't know. And did you hear that Patrick O'Veen did Patrick O'Veen say like where I'm supposed to find the next Dakota Joshua? Did I?
Pretty much. And I don't know if that was, I don't know if
Right.
that's just sort of a translation type of thing where he's just saying like, hey, I got to find more guys like this.
A
right.
guy
Which
like
is sort
him,
of how I saw it. This AFP thing has it at an estimate at 4 years, 3.25, which to me, I think I take that all day. And again, the money will get tight pretty quick, but he was such a good player this year, and he just kept looking like he kept getting better.
Yeah, and Rain, I think we're asking the same thing. Rain or Rian, sorry if I mispronounced that. The debate is this who he is, or is this a one season wonder? Oh,
I gotta think it is who he is, man. I think, especially the way Talkett praised him a lot and said like, I think he's better than he thinks he is. And I think Joshua was starting to maybe see that too. I really think, he might not be a, 40 point a year guy if he plays all 82, right? What was his pace was this year. He might not be a 40 point guy. But I think he's so valuable. And especially if you come back and you bring Bluger back also, and you just run that line back together next year,
right?
As your third line, like it's a heck of a third line.
It is. Yeah. And I know there were injuries and and they tried Lindholm with them, but unfortunately they never got the chemistry back. But it was so quick; they only got a chance to play together for a couple times in the playoffs. Yeah,
and I think I think you sort of realize like the lifeblood of that line was Garland and Joshua.
Yeah,
right. So you can probably have a cheaper guy, a la Teddy Bluger, in that spot, right down the middle.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Okay, so percentage for you that he's not that you want him to come back, that he is coming back.
Yeah, the want is like 110%. Actual reality, I think he probably tries to get more than 3.25. I think he probably is closer to 4. And I think someone will pay it. Like that's the thing. You got 32 GMs out there, and he is the prototypical guy that GMs would want to add to their team, right?
Yep.
There's going to be a bidding war for this guy. I'm going to say maybe a 35% chance they get that done.
Yeah, I'm with you. A slightly high, but barely. Yeah, I'll go with you 35 to 40. I think it's less likely than Bluger. I really do.
I do too.
Yeah.
And it's also probably going to be double the dollar amount, right? Or at least 1.7x or so.
Yep. Okay.
All right. 2 more forwards to look at. Sam Lafferty.
Out. Oh, sorry. No. sorry.
So, so 29 years old. Recently turned 25. This last contract is the most he's ever been paid, 1.15 per year for 2 years. 24 points in 79 games. Really, really, really good start to the season.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first 25 games or so, he was like, it was like, wow, we absolutely robbed the Maple Leafs of this guy. But he really fell off the last half of the season. I mean, 11 playoff games, no points, -2, just 2 PIMs, pretty much no impact in the postseason. And look, that's where this team is now, right? We went from, hey, we need to get this team to the playoffs to now it's like, okay, now how do we make this team a contender? Right. And we saw, and that's the luxury of playing 2 full playoff rounds, right? Getting 13 playoff games in like this team did. You can now see, okay, who's going to be our playoff guys, right? Yeah. That's going to elevate guys like Nikita Zadorov. And it's also going to show you like, hey, maybe a guy like Sam Lafferty or a guy like Ilya Mikheyev or, whoever you want to add to that list, maybe they're not the guys for the playoffs.
It's crazy. I'll take Lafferty at 1.1 over McCabe at 4.75. But when I reacted so quickly about Lafferty out, yeah, I don't see what he brings that you can't get from someone else.
Well, that's the
Yeah.
thing. Like, do we think he's getting a big raise? I mean, these projections have him at 2.3 a year, which at that money you say no, right? I think that's. Well, I mean, because he had 24 points, right? I think that he had 13 goals. That adds up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I think someone will give him, 175 maybe. But I don't think that should be us. I think if he wants to come back at 1.1, 1.2 a year again, and we just run him as a 13th forward, fine with that, right?
Yeah.
But otherwise, I'd rather have, PDG at 775 over Lafferty at, 2.
Yeah, Lafferty has to use his speed, and he's not like the biggest guy in the world, but he can check because of his speed. But I didn't see enough of that in the playoffs, Parker. So that's why I'm a bit soured on him. But yeah, all these we're gonna obviously say it depends on price point. So I'm going 25% likelihood he comes back.
I'm going like 10. I just don't think they prioritize him.
Yep. Fair enough.
And then our last forward is obviously the biggest one. And that is Elias Lindholm. Obviously the big trade, first round pick plus to get him in, and pretty slow start. I mean, 12 points in 26 regular season games. However, in 13 playoff games, he had 5 goals, 5 assists for 10 points. He was a +4. He was a much more useful impact player, but I don't know if he was good enough to demand the price tag that he's probably going to demand, because frankly, he hasn't been that guy this whole year, right? I mean, he had 44 points this season in 75 games.
Yep.
That's pretty low, right? The year before 64, the year before 82. So it has been steady decline over the past few years. And of course, but that's the thing, right? He's a playoff performer, right? 2021-22, he had 9 points in 12 games. 2019-20, he had 6 points in 10 games. This year, he had 10 points in 13 games. So when it's, the bigger games, he shows up. But I don't know if the Canucks can afford to pay a guy like him, whatever that number might be, $6-7 million a year, maybe more, if he's not going to be a regular season major contributor.
Yeah, I'm torn on this one, Parker, because I thought he was one of our top 3 players in the playoffs, top 5 for sure. He doesn't seem like the guy. I've never heard him say outright, "I want to be back here." Like he says, the culture was good, a great time getting with my teammates. All-Star break was fun, great team here, great group of guys. But less so, I really want to be here because all these guys know what they were joking about at the press conference. They all know they're in the same position as they're becoming UFAs. This is what they work all career for. Having said that, I know that Alvin loves going 3 deep down the middle. And if, of course, you count PD as one of those 3, so then is that too expensive down the middle now? Miller, PD, and Lindholm. So yeah, I like him. I like what he brings, but I just have a feeling he's going to be the one that's kind of the most obvious that drops off, actually.
Yeah, it's interesting. And the quote from Rick Dhaliwal last week, they'll talk to Lindholm's agent, ask what it'll take. It's possible, maybe not, but they will try. Is basically what Rick Dhaliwal said.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a tough one because that projection site that I was looking at has him at 5 years, 6.7 per year. So I'm kind of on the edge on that number, right? Because there's a chance that he starts meshing and gets, is this playoff self that he really was the last few weeks and in the playoffs. And then that $6.7 million might actually be a pretty good value, right? Yeah. And then 5 years, it's not an egregious amount of time if it doesn't go fantastically, right? It's not like we're giving him an 8-year deal if it were to be that number. But you have to imagine he might be pushing for some more term, although maybe he's looking at it like, hey, I wasn't very good these last couple of years. I can be better. I want a shorter term deal to bet on myself again. So that's something to potentially think about, but yeah, it's an interesting one.
But yeah, I'm with you about that self, recognizing, but at the same time, yeah, like all these guys, he's 29 years old. So this is the one time you got to hit your home run, I think. There are a couple exceptions, but generally, right, this is the one where you got to hit your home run.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going 33%.
Yeah, I'm gonna say 45 to 50.
Okay. I like
wonder if
yours better.
I wonder if there's a bit of sunk cost fallacy in there. Um,
Yeah.
like, hey, we gave up a lot to get this guy, we should keep him around.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that playoff performance,
Yeah.
I wonder if they're like, hey, maybe regular season, we think we have a good enough team regardless to get 98 points, 100 points and get in. And then once we get to the playoffs, that's when we're going to shine, right? If we just have a bunch of playoff performers. So that's, could be the way that they try to pull it off.
And I love this point because, and I like reading this because if Lindholm walks, does it make the trade a loss for the Canucks? I'm going to say that I've heard that Rutherford and Alvin, especially Rutherford, don't think like this. They're not afraid to, exactly, they're not afraid to not fall into that sunk cost fallacy. And if they think they can make their team better and extend the trade tree, so be it. But or whatever it may be. But I don't think my point is I don't think Rutherford worries about this kind of thing.
That's the way unrestricted free agency works, right?
Yeah.
Like as of now, he's a free agent, right? The trade is over, frankly, right? Yeah. The trade has been processed. Everything that was traded across has been done. Every other team has the same opportunity as he does, but that also means the Canucks can go out and get a different UFA to replace that, right? For free. Well, other than the money, but yeah, the trade was for a pure rental, right? I think it's, and you can build up some chemistry and maybe you get some relationships going that you can try to sell them on staying. But frankly, it's, the trade was for the last couple months of the season in the playoffs, and that was it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Grim does 6.7 in a heartbeat, not 7 though, or 7 to 5 at 8. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you gotta have, I think that number has to start with a 6, and the years, I don't want to go more than 5, frankly.
Yep.
But that, again, Lindholm has, the right to go try to get more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. So forwards, then we only gave Bluger 50% or more. We're actually giving less than 50% for all three of Joshua, Lafferty, and Lindholm.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of fair. There's a lot of guys out there that are, a lot of these guys are pretty replaceable, right? Like Sam Lafferty, like, there's guys out there, Teddy Bluger, there's guys out there, and they were good additions, but there's other guys out there at that point. And if those guys want to go get more money, if they can, then they should.
Yeah. I think, okay, even more intriguing is the D, I think.
Yeah. So the Canucks have 3 defensemen for next year, essentially. Right.
How's your skating, Parker? How's your skating?
It's a bit, I'm a little rusty right now. So Quinn Hughes, obviously has 3 more years, just under $8 million a year. Carson Soucy has 2 more seasons at 3.25, and Noah Juleson has this last year at 7.75 before he becomes a UFA. And so I think we're pretty comfortable. Hughes will be the number 1 D. Soucy will be probably number 4 in a perfect world, maybe number 3, depending on what they can do with their money. Yeah. And Noah Juleson, probably number 7. So that means they need a number 2, a number 3, a number 5, and a number 6, and some depth for good measure. And again, they don't have a ton of money to do that, unless they can find a way out of that Mikheyev contract, which we'll get to later. Let's start with the lower priority ones. Knock those out.
Friedman gone.
Mark Friedman, yeah, he's fine, but I think he's and he'd be like a number 8 here, which is what he was essentially. And I imagine he can go somewhere like San Jose and be like a number 6 and get actual playing time. And that's probably what he wants at this point in his career.
Where did he come from? Didn't he come from San Jose?
No, did he?
Oh, I don't know.
No, he came from Pittsburgh, obviously.
Oh, Pittsburgh. Oh yeah, of course.
It's just like everyone else on this team.
But he does feel like a San Jose kind of guy. You're right.
Yeah, we traded Jack Rathbone for him.
Oh, okay. Ian Cole.
It's okay. Jack Rathbone isn't doing much either.
No. Ian Cole gone as well.
I think so. I think that playoff, it was. I think he was a really solid third pair guy all season, which is what he was brought in to be. But he was really brought in to be a defensive stalwart during the playoffs. Guy who's played at he came into the playoffs, played 116 playoff games coming into this playoff. And he was frankly not good in the playoffs, right? Like he had obviously all the gaffes in the Edmonton series. Like just felt like maybe it was a bad week, or maybe maybe they were just too quick for him. And since this team again is trying to be a team that is building itself for the playoffs, I think you need to look at that and say we got to go a different direction.
Yeah. And it's not because like every second goal for the first 3 games went off of him. I just think, I think he had a bad start to the season. Then he got better, and then he kind of regressed again a little bit against some really intense and fast hockey. Yeah, he was good. He was fine with the media. I'm sure he was great in the locker room. But again, at 35 years old, and he made what? What did he make this year?
3.
He made 3. Yeah, that's a lot.
It is a lot.
What does your website say about
him? 1 year, 2.1.
Oh, no, I still don't want him.
I don't think I do either. I think you can find someone a little bit younger and quicker.
Okay, so we agree.
Pretty slow decor.
Yep. So we agree that Friedman and Cole likely gone.
All right, let's get into the fun ones. Tyler Myers, obviously coming off that 5-year, $30 million contract. Thank you, Jim. What a turnaround from Tyler Myers this season.
Yeah.
Like went from being like the joke contract, one of the joke contracts of the NHL, right? Him and OEL right next to each other. And this year the guy played, at least especially in the playoffs, he played like a $4.5 to $5 million defenseman. And he was actually good, in my opinion. What did you think of Tyler Myers?
Yep. I thought, I'm looking at his playoffs. He was good in the playoffs. Not that he was supposed to create. He only had 1 point actually in the playoffs. And I say that because Parker, during the regular season, he had 30 points, like 29 points, which is pretty good.
So it's a lot.
Yeah. Production wise is a bit of a drop off, but that wasn't his role in the playoffs. I thought he was good. I am, even if he does move on, I'm happy that he kind of rewrote his narrative over the last 2 or 3 seasons. But I so much so where I never hated him. He's just so obvious when he makes mistakes because he's so darn big. But I know we've been saying this together, both privately and publicly. If they can bring him back, but what's reasonable? That's not insulting. Like you're not going to get him for 1 million, 2. Is it 3? Is it exactly half? Do you go up to 3.25, 3.5? What does your website say, Parker?
So this website's got him at 2 years, 3.1.
Yeah, there we go, 3.1.
And that's, he is 34. So like the 2 years is a little, because who knows if there's a fall off the following year, right? Or even going to next year, it's $6 million that you're committing again. But he was, I think if you can get him at like 275, I think you probably just do it. Because I think I don't think you can just bring in, I mean, they did it last year, right? They just said, all right, all the guys are new. Every defenseman is new except for Quinn Hughes and Tyler Myers.
Yeah.
Right. That was everyone else was a new guy. So I think you want to let a little bit of chemistry build, especially because the Canucks were pretty good defensively in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And he's been a decent penalty killer, and obviously he's got the long reach.
Sure.
I wouldn't be shocked if they brought him back, and I don't think I'd hate it.
Yeah, and Irvin, you make a good point. As soon as Parker said Tyler Myers' age is 34, yes, this is my first thought too. Is we just said that Ian Cole, but even Ian Cole skates like he's older than 35. I think Myers skates that like he's younger than 35 or 34.
Yeah, they're basically exactly a year apart. But Ian Cole just, especially the Edmonton series, right? Because let's think about the Canucks in the playoffs next year, right? Let's say the Canucks make the playoffs next year. Guess what? They're playing Edmonton in round 1 or round 2. Like guaranteed, they will. Those will be 2 of the top 3 teams most likely, or at least 2 of the top 4, and they will, be in the Pacific Division battle. So you have to build your team to beat Edmonton. Ian Cole just wasn't mobile enough, right? And sure, maybe Tyler Myers might lose a step, right? But Ian Cole's always been slower, and I think he got a little bit slower than that. It's not that 34 is or 35 is when you're just too old to keep up, because that's frankly not true. But guys sort of get over that hill at different times, right? And for Ian Cole's got think of how many more miles Ian Cole's got on him than Tyler Myers. right?
Yeah.
Ian Cole has played, they've played a similar number of games. Like Tyler Myers has played more regular season games, 995 to the 826 of Ian Cole. But I think the playoff games probably beat you up a lot more, where Ian Cole has played 129 playoff games. Ian Cole has been in the playoffs 10 of the last 12 years.
Wow.
Right. So there hasn't been a lot of rest, right? You think of all this playoff experience he has, his first 5 years in the league, he played 2 playoff games, right? So these are all coming from like 25 to 35 age seasons, essentially, where he's put on, an extra season and a half, basically of play, of hard playoff hockey. Tyler Myers hasn't seen the playoffs since he's been here. Right. So I think it adds up.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if there's Noah Strang from Offside Daily Hive. If it is, welcome, Noah. If not, you have the same name as the guy who writes for Daily Hive Offside.
I think it is Noah.
That's awesome. Welcome, Noah. And thanks for watching. Does Cole potentially being injured at Edmonton change your thoughts? Seems likely considering end of year. Yeah, and I'm not debating his ability, his fight, his grit, all those things. But even if he was healthy, yeah, sure, it might have affected his play. But I'm still looking at that $3 million as a strong allocation for a guy who might not move the needle. So
yeah, and if he's down to 2 again, like I wouldn't hate it as a number 6. But I think you can probably fill that role with someone else. If you want to, right? If they have him and someone else equivalent and they're the same amount of money are on the table and they say, hey, let's go with the guy we know, that's fine by me. But I do worry about, it's like, do we get back to Edmonton again? And if it was mental and everything was just bouncing the wrong way on him, do we get back to Edmonton next year and it does the same thing happen? Right? Because there's going to be that little thing in the back of his head. I have to imagine. So again, I'm not saying that's necessarily the case, but I think it's a pretty low priority signing, right? Because at most, I don't think you're giving him more than another 1 year. And if you're Ian Cole, he's played a lot of playoff hockey. He's won a cup or 2, right? Like maybe he wants to just get paid being a mentor somewhere else. That's maybe not a playoff team. Who knows? I'm not saying that's necessarily true, but might sort of have that option.
All right. So collectively, we're saying Friedman, no. Cole, likely no. Myers, potentially yes, if the price is right.
I think so. All right. The 2 big
ones.
Right.
The 2 big ones.
Well, I guess
Tyler
Myers is bigger than Philip Hronek, but Nikita Zadorov. Obviously, traded for by the Canucks. Pretty reasonable trade, right? It was like a third and not a lot else, right? It was a third in Kuzmenko.
It's basically Beauvillier. No, it was Beauvillier and the pick from Beauvillier and
right.
Something. Yeah, it was good. It was a good trade.
Kuzmenko was Lindholm. It was a third and a fifth, basically.
That's good.
So very little. This is a tough one. So Nikita Zadorov, obviously unreal. But we never saw him at his worst, which we've been told it's out there, right? He has, but man, does he check every box. He's got the size, he's got the skill. I mean, his playoff was, it was unbelievable. Like if the Canucks had won that second round, and like the random goals that he's scoring down the rush, and like he was so unbelievably good in the postseason, trucking guys, just being at war with Evander Kane for the entire series. However, obvious candidate to get absolutely paid, because if you go to an NHL GM and say, hey, what are you looking for in like a number 3, number 4 defenseman? Size, physicality, playoff performer, PK, like every single thing that he does is on the list of what a GM wants in one of their defensemen. So there's going to be a lot of teams lining up, and obviously like great in the room, right? Like I always think back to that After Hours interview with Scott Oak, and he's so well spoken. The game day fits go crazy. Like he's got it all. He's the whole package. And because of that, there's going to be 32 teams lining up with millions of dollars in their hands, asking him to come play for them. Yeah.
And you broke down really well all the good things he does on the ice. And you're right. With the media, he became a fan favorite. He became a media favorite. So good on the ice, good off the ice. here's the thing. Like, I want him to come back, Parker, but and there's rumor, like Irfan Gafar tweeted out that Zadorov's camp rejected a 4 or 5 year sent 4.5. And that's not a surprise because the number that we've been hearing ever since he got here was it starts with a 5. So we can acknowledge that. But let's say we bring him back at 5, and I think it's going to take more than that. But let's say he says yes to 5 times 5, for instance. Do you want 7 plus 4, 11, 60 million tied up on your left side of your D, right? With Hughes at 8, with Susie at 3.5 or 3.2, and then another 5 for that's 60 million. That's 20% of your cap on your on 3 guys.
Yeah, and I think it really comes down to what if you're fine loading up the left side, right? And let's say you're paying Myers 3 to be your number 4,
so 19,
and then you pay someone 1.5 to be your number 6 on the right side, or
so 20.
Hey, maybe you think Noah Juleson can make that step. I don't know if they should, but maybe they say, hey, maybe that's a way that we can save some money in that case. So it's a lot to devote to one part of your team. However, knowing how this team is structured and knowing how this team is built, they seem like they want to prioritize the middle and they want to prioritize the defense. Because frankly, hey, they're going to be paying their goaltenders $6.5 million next year. That's a lot of money being saved.
Good point.
The OEL buyout hurts, but they have some cap efficiencies where if you can get out of that Ilya Mikheyev contract, and just 4.75, thank you, Nikita Zadorov, here you go, plus a little extra. That is the biggest cap level upgrade that you could possibly make would be getting rid of Mikheyev's 4.75 and adding Hronek at 5.2, whatever that might be.
Yeah. And actually, when we're doing the mental math, Hughes at 8, Susie at 3, 11, Zadorov at 5, 16, Hronek at 7, just for purpose of this, 23, Myers 3, 26, and then Juleson, whatever, at one more, 27. So that's not actually, when you do like that, that's not bad. 27 on your whole D, your starting D, that's not bad.
Yeah. So if we say the cap's going to be 87.7, which is what Cap Friendly has it estimated at, if you divide that across 23 guys, which is like your actual roster, it's just under $4 million a player. Yeah. Right. 3.8 ish.
Sure.
So yeah, obviously you got guys like Pettersson making 11.6. So, but that just means the bottom of your lineup has to be cheap, and it can be. Pius Suter already locked in at 1.6, Niels Höglander 1.1, Podkolzin at 1, Niels Oman at 8.25, PDG at 7.75. Right? There's some money to be played around with, and again, if you can take that Mikheyev money and allocate that to a better winger, right, then suddenly your offense looks a lot better, and you can maybe afford to splash a little bit of extra cash on the defensive side.
Right. Okay.
And he's a perfect Canuck, Nikita Zadorov. Like, he feels like he's built to be here. And like, if this team wins a Stanley Cup, God willing, I would love for him to be one of the people lifting it.
Well, Botch Guy is welcome. Nice to see you. And he's pitching in $3. Thank you, Botch Guy, pitching in to help with Zadorov's contract. Well, that'll probably get it done. Thank you. Just because
that should do it. Yeah, I'll call up. Is it Gold Star that reps him?
Yeah, it is Milstein. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I figured.
Thank you, Botch. Appreciate that.
It's a safe bet with a Russian player.
Percentage chance Zadorov comes back. Oh, but what does your website say?
5 years, 5.2.
Okay.
51%.
I love it. I will match your website's 5.2, 52%.
All right. Yeah, I think again it's a lot of money for a guy who's had some gaffes historically. But man, he really fit this team's vibe perfectly.
Yeah.
All right.
The other defenseman, who's the RFA.
Yes, restricted free agent Philip Hronek.
What are the rules? I always get confused with the rules with this. Like, if we don't do anything, he gets assigned a number, right? He's arbitration eligible. Okay. So we could go to arbitration and he would get a 1-year deal at
each team would give a number, and I guess they end up just picking a number in the middle anyways.
I think the Canucks will bring J. Pat in their negotiating team.
The MLB has arbitration rules that I think are a lot more interesting, where both team and player both submit a number, and the arbitrator picks one of the numbers. Oh, wow. So you can't just because in the NHL what happens is the team lowballs them. Like the team will be like 2 million, the player will be like 5 million. They're like, oh wow, you got 3.5, crazy. Whereas you have to be reasonable in arbitration, otherwise they're going to pick the other number in the MLB. Not the way it works in the NHL. So they would each name a number, and they would have until that arbitration date to either settle on a contract or make a trade or something along those lines. Now, I guess there's something like they don't have to offer him arbitration. Like that's if the qualifying offer for Filip Hronek is the minimum they have to do. Right. So if they present him with a qualifying offer, which for Filip Hronek would be $5.28 million.
And he's obviously not going to take that.
No, of course not.
Right.
But they can offer him 1 year, $5.28 million. If they do that and he does not accept, then they go to arbitration. And frankly, I mean, I don't think they have to go to arbitration because I think you can hold out or something along those lines.
And arbitration is not binding too. The arbitrator can say a number and they kind of say, okay, that's good. Good luck.
Yeah, no. And I'm thinking about like, didn't William Nylander have this happen where he was an RFA and like almost didn't play the whole season? Like it was you have to sign by like December 1st. Yeah, there's some 1st. Weird. Yeah. I don't think that's going to happen. Let's be real. They're either going to sign him or they're going to trade him, I think is what's going to happen, or they're going to go to arbitration.
Right. Here it is. In order for a team to keep a player's RFA status, they must provide a qualifying offer. If they do not provide a QO, the player becomes a UFA. Qualifying offers must be provided to the player by the Monday after the draft or June 25th.
So that'll then be done.
Yeah. A qualifying offer cannot actually be accepted before July 1st. If a QO is not accepted, it expires by July 15 unless extended in writing by the team. Yeah. Okay. And
then there's some arbitration rights in there that do something. So yeah, that's where they stand. I mean, Filip Hronek, very good at the start of the season. But again, sort of fell off a cliff the latter half of the year. Stopped producing. Obviously in the playoffs, 2 points for your big offensive defenseman playing with Quinn Hughes. How do you only get 2 points in the playoffs? One was a big goal that almost, tied game, or got him within 1 goal in game 7. Which could have been a narrative changer, but like just a big fall off for Filip Hronek. That for me, it's like, because you can get something back in a trade, right? Some team will want to pay him, and obviously the rights are valuable. You could also do like a sign and trade. That's always an option as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would rather. I don't know where you're gonna find a Quinn Hughes partner. But I would be okay if you did find one that maybe wasn't Filip Hronek.
Yeah, and I was looking at the free agents, the right shot D-men. Because I knew we were gonna do this show. No, I don't want TJ Brody too old, but you go down a bit. Oh no, that's our guy. That's Tyler Myers. Tanev, Barry, Zaitsev, John Klingberg, Brent Pesce. Yeah, I know a lot of people talk about Brent Pesce from the Carolina. He's coming off a $4 million contract. How much does he want? I know a lot of people like Brent Pesce.
Oh, that's a good question. I'll see if I can find him on this list here.
Yeah.
Control F, Pesce. Let's see.
Can you do Pesce and then do Brandon Montour? I'm interested in those two guys.
So their comps for Brett Pesce are Hampus Lindholm, who got 8 at 6.5. Matthias Ekholm, who got 4 at 6.25. Damon Severson, who got 8 at 6.25. Anton Strawman, who got 3 at 5.5. So they have their number on him is 5 years at about 6.3 for Brett Pesce.
And
which I think I just do, frankly.
Yeah.
Like
5 times 6.
That sounds awesome. He's a very good defenseman.
Can you please look up Brandon Montour? He's the other one I'm interested in.
I can look up Brandon Montour. For Brandon Montour, we have 6 year, 7.7 projected. Whoa. So a lot higher. His comps are,
wow.
Let's see what I can find here. Brandon Montour, Dougie Hamilton, 7x9. John Carlson, 8x8. Kevin Shattenkirk, 4x6.65. Mike Green, 3x6. Mackenzie Weegar, 8x6.25. So some pretty significant,
There's some big games
paychecks.
there. Okay, what do you think? It's already 10:46. We should probably. What do you think they do with Hronek? What do you think happens?
I think this team is not afraid to wheel and deal.
Yeah.
You know, I think they might try to set up like a sign and trade, right? Like find a team that's so their projections on Hronek from this website, they actually had 7 years at 7.4 or 3 years bridge contract at 6.1, which is more palatable.
Yeah.
And like kind of reasonable. But again, I worry about like he's got to be hurt because I worry about that playoff performance. Again, right? Like we're looking at like, hey, who is going to be Quinn Hughes' D partner in the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
For against Edmonton again, or against whoever it ends up being in round one, if it's against LA or and then who are you going to put up against Colorado or Dallas or Winnipeg in the third round, right? Like that's where we need to be thinking here. Philip Hronek never played a playoff game before this year in the NHL, right? So definitely something to keep in mind there.
Okay. Percentage, Philip Hronek. Percentage he starts with the team.
That's what I was going to say. I think there's a higher percentage that they sign him than he's there on the opening night. 40?
Yeah.
I think it's below 50.
Yeah. I remember going, I'll say right at 50 because I can't make a decision.
Fair enough.
All right, let's quickly do the goalies. We got Casey DeSmith gone. She loves in net, or get another goaltender and take advantage of she. There's no way they're going to take advantage of one more year of she loves being Whaler except, but he's ready to go, right? Like he's going to be our backup.
Absolutely, he's going to be the backup because, and frankly, I think he performed so well, and I think you try to start Demko a lot less if you can, right? Especially if this team's like fairly comfortably in a playoff spot, like they were all year this year. Mm-hmm. Like why not start Demko in 50 games instead of 55, 57, right? He can play, you do like a, 48-34 split where Sheila gets a bunch of starts, gets experience because we know he can hold his own for the most part. He's projected to basically get $1 million a year. I think they might give him a little extra. It'll be a one-way deal though. I promise you that. Yeah. Even if it's 2 years, like they have it projected at 2 years by one. I think they might go, like 2 years at 1.2 and make it all guaranteed. And that would be,
the Canucks love
happy.
Yeah, exactly. The Canucks love doing that 2 year RFA bridge. They did it with Hoglander. They did it with Puckholes in the 1.1, 1.2 range. That's totally what I expect as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And it makes perfect sense because then that also aligns with the end of Thatcher Demko's contract.
Yeah.
Right. If you do tiers at one, and I'm sure that's what She Loves would want, right? Be like, hey, when you get to 2026, 2027, all right, now you have to make the same decision you made with Markstrom or Demko, right? Mm-hmm. Are you going to pay Demko the $8, $9, $10 million a year that he might want in 2027? Or is She Loves going to take over that role and then you sign him to like a 5x5 and do the same thing that they did with Demko? So that would be a very interesting thing to keep track of in a couple of years.
So we have just ripped through 9 UFAs and 2 RFAs, and we didn't. I think we gave all of them justice. Like we actually gave hopefully some balanced thoughts, pros and cons of signing each of these guys. So according to us, She Loves gets a new contract. Hronek's 50-50. DeSmith is gone. Myers probably back. Cole and Friedman gone. Zadorov, we hope, is here. Then up front, Bluger is our only plus 50%. Joshua right on the lip, and then Lindholm, hopefully, but probably not. And then Lafferty gone. Does that sound right?
Sounds right to me.
I guess we should go to what the people think, right?
We should go what the people think. And I will say, so like date range wise, right? So Stanley Cup Finals will end on June 24th.
Yep.
That's when Game 7 would be.
Yep.
Then you have the awards a couple days after, I guess probably like the 26th. And then you have the draft on like the 28th and 29th. And then you have free agency 2 days later, essentially. So it's a very, very condensed schedule. And then, and then we'll know things like arbitration wise on Hronek. Club election salary arbitration would be June 15th. Player elected would be July 5th or July 6th. And then arbitration hearings would be late July. So
Awesome.
that's going to be.
We're
That's
getting
gonna
all
be the
these
interesting
dates.
one.
Are you rounding this on the top of your dome or what?
Yeah, no, I just know all the. No, it's on the. It's the 2023-24 NHL dates of interest.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam, for supporting us for 2 months. We appreciate it. I love Peter because you keep talking about sign and trade, which I agree with. And Martin Natchez' name keeps coming up in terms of the top 6, especially for PD's wings, UFA wingers. Who's the best fit for PD? And if Hronek does get traded, what do you say about, and maybe it's not 1-for-1, but something involving Hronek and Natchez?
I like Natchez as a player.
Yeah.
His contract projections are interesting. So they did something similar. Let me figure out what was he making here, Martin and Natchez. So Natchez was making $3 million for the last 2 years. And he had, of course, 53 points, 24 goals. Last year, he had 71 points. And then in the playoffs, he was good also this year, 9 points in 11 games.
Yeah.
Very solid winger. This website projects if they were to go short term with Natchez, he would be worth in the 3 years, 6.2 ish range.
Wow.
Long term would be 7 by 7.5.
Wow.
So he's also going to get paid, apparently, which feels like a lot of money for Natchez.
That seems high. Yeah. Although as
does
much as I
seem
like
high.
him.
And it would be check for check.
It would be. How's Natchez with the media?
Great question.
Okay. I like him. I don't like that 7.5 number though. Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like a lot. But he's a first line winger. And that's, if you're saying, hey, trade Mikheyev's, $4.5 million for Natchez's 6, that sounds great. Obviously, you're probably not getting rid of that Mikheyev contract that easily, though.
Yeah. Edmund says, which UFA might be willing to take a hometown discount? Well, Myers literally, because he lives in Okanagan.
Yeah, I think Myers is a really good candidate for that. He made his money, right? He got his big payday. He's made $64 million in his career, right? Like it's not going to make or break him if he's making $3 million versus $2.5 million this year, right? That's he wants to win, and now he's on a team that actually could happen.
Yeah.
So I think there's some potential there, but I also think there'll be some other suitors lining up. But when you're at that stage in your career, I could definitely see him going the route of choosing to stay here, especially since he has sort of rewritten that relationship with the city, right? Where he was sort of the scapegoat, and it wasn't really his fault, right? Everyone knew who he was before he got here, and Jim Benning still gave him $30 million. So I think he was a lot better this season, and I think he's the obvious candidate. I don't know if Zadorov's really that obvious of a candidate for me. I mean, he might really like it here and want to stay, but again, this is also his big payday too, right? He's been making $3 to $4 million for the last 5 years, essentially. So he's made, $20 million, but we're talking about a potential $30+ million contract that he could be going for if he goes for 6 or 7 years. That's obviously a big opportunity.
First reaction out of 10, how interested are you in Stamkos?
If I was playing like an NHL video game, I'd be all over it.
Yeah.
I think realistically, I'm pretty low on Stamkos. I think there is no chance that he is not in a Tampa Bay Lightning uniform.
Okay.
Ever. Like it just doesn't feel right to me. Projection on the website here is 3 by 6.1.
Okay.
For Stamkos.
Gotcha. Edmund also asked, how do you feel about Alvin Rutherford running out of time? No, if there's one thing that we've seen from trade deadline this year is Rutherford usually likes to be ahead of the curve. So I don't think they don't play games. They don't like to wait. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're going to see a lot of things happen right at the end of the Stanley Cup final. I think they're going to start making moves quick.
Yeah. What did Brendan Dillon have to say? I didn't listen to it.
Yeah. He seemed very interested in coming here. He sort of said, like, as someone who grew up there, it would be like a dream come true, was sort of his sentiment. Obviously, how much of a dream come true is it, with the money that is potentially to be made out there?
Yeah.
Projections have him at about 2 by 2.9 million dollars a year. So it'd be around, Carson Soucy type of deal.
Yeah.
Ian Cole, somewhere in there. He's a good player.
Mm-hmm.
You'd definitely be sort of a third pair focus though, especially with Hughes and Susie already on the left side.
Right. No, he'd be
But
good.
if you're if you wanted to go that route over, an Ian Cole, then but or like a Zadorov, I guess, or unless you're willing to play Zadorov on the offside, that's something you have to balance.
You think it's just one top 6 forward they're looking for, or two, as Witness?
I don't know if they've got the money for two.
Yeah,
unless you get rid of Mikheyev, and then you're probably not bringing back Zadorov, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe not Joshua either, right? Like there's definitely there'd be some cuts you'd have to make for sure.
Yeah. And speaking of which, and I like this point by Mike, Alvin already said there will be spots available for Abbotsford guys to make to make the team. Let's not overpay for washed up wingers and avoid paying bottom 6 guys top 6 money.
Yeah. And that's this, again, this group's been really good at that, other than Ilya Mikheyev. Like that's one miss. It's not, they didn't do Beagle and Roussel in the same offseason, like the previous regime did. You look at a lot of these guys though, they paid Pius Suter 2 by 1.6. Yeah. They're not doing these big overpays, and they obviously thought Mikheyev was going to be a top 6, but they go out and find guys like Niels Oman making, $800K, or Phil DiGiuseppe making $700K. Yeah. Teddy Bluger at 1.9. Dakota Joshua at like $1 million. Like they're pretty good at finding pretty cheap guys, and that's the thing. If you have a lot of those depth guys right around the $1 million mark, well, there's really no there's not that contract hanging over their head. We're like, man, we better play this guy, right? Because then you can get a guy like Karamaki to try to make a push, or like a Max Sasson to try to make a push. Or Linus Carlson, or
where's Atu Ratu? I want Atu
Ratu. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? They get a whole nother offseason of training, and coming into that training camp, and this is something we talked about at length last year, right? Is if you have maybe 10 guys on your roster that you're set on, but then you have 9 guys who could be competing for that spot, it only takes 1 or 2 of them to have a big jump. And then suddenly let's say out of all these guys, one of them, let's say randomly, Max Sasson has an outstanding training camp, or Josh Bloom, let's say, and wow, hey, this guy could play 4th line minutes for us, right? Now, boom, you've just added, a cheap contract into your lineup. You're actually going to save money on the cap, because now you're able to play a guy who's making under $900K, and you're able to bury a contract that's 1.1, and now you're making money back.
Yeah. As you're saying all that, I just so Mikheyev is an Alvin signing, eh? One of his very few missteps.
It was one of the first ones. He has a 12-team no trade as well on that deal.
Okay, gotcha.
That one was a misstep for sure.
Shannon says, I want Shelovs as backup for Demko, not DeSmith. Oh, Shannon, we agree. We think Shelovs as well. I wouldn't say DeSmith isn't good, but he's a backup. He's a career backup goaltender.
I think DeSmith has shown that he is great as a backup, but you can't stick him in 4, 5, 6 games in a row. And that's a thing that Shelovs showed he could do. And again, if Demko's had a bit of injury history now, that I think you need a guy who can step in and play a run of games if you need to.
Chris asked, would you do Tanev for 2 years?
2 years I'd rather go the 1 year out for Chris Tanev. It's so weird because Chris Tanev was always hurt, and then he leaves, and then he's playing 82 game seasons. He has been unbelievable for Dallas in the playoffs. He had the McKinnon matchup, and they Dallas was controlling play against Nathan McKinnon because Chris Tanev was playing so well. He had, he's getting the McDavid matchup. He's very, very good. This actually projects him at 3 years, $4.5 million per year for Chris Tanev.
Wow.
I don't think I'd do that. I think I might do it for 1 year, or maybe go 2 years at 3.5. But again, you're really playing with fire with the age curve at that point for a guy like Chris Tanev. But he doesn't play a fast game, right? He plays a very, positional based game that might translate as he gets older.
Rain likes Matt Roy from LA.
Yeah, he is an analytics darling as well. He? Yeah, absolutely. what is he at on here? They have it 5 years, 5.8. So
Right.
he'd be looking at a pretty big payday. Let me find I can find this really quickly.
Sure.
What they had, what the analytics I saw on him were.
It's coming out 3.15. That's not bad.
Yeah. He was ranked for LA this year, 97th percentile defensively. He is an elite penalty killer, very good defender. Decent on the offensive side too, like 58th percentile.
Mhm.
So like not necessarily a black hole defensively, but very, very good defensively.
Yeah.
Which yeah, he's gonna get paid pretty well as well.
Very good. Botch guy, do you think we see Lekkerimäki and Wilander by the end of the season as regulars? So Wilander one's easy because he is a college. We know he's gonna do one more year in college, and he could do the Besser Hughes thing where if his college season ends before the Canucks season ends, but it depends where the Canucks are. Obviously, they're not going to plunk him in if they're in a playoff race or whatever. But if they already know their fate, I could see him getting 4 or 5 games at the end of the season because that's usually what they do with their college players.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna see them as regulars
Yeah,
necessarily. Maybe Lekkerimäki if they
yeah,
need some offense. I don't know if I think Willander's gonna be he's pretty young.
yep,
But I could definitely see them getting a handful of games or being early call ups,
yeah,
especially like for Lekkerimäki. If someone in the top 6 goes down for a few games, like it gets hurt,
yeah.
maybe they say, hey, let's just instead of moving like PDG up the lineup, just bring up like a guy like Karamaki, just slot him straight in and leave the rest of the lineup unchanged.
Mm-hmm. Wow, look at all our ideas. We're so smart.
Absolutely. Folks, that's about our time. We've been an hour here. Programming note for next week, Clay is away and
Yep,
we're sort of, it's going to start getting a little bit thin in the off season for us at the very least. So we will be taking next Monday off, the 3rd, June
yep,
3rd. We'll be back June 10th, and then we'll play it by ear as we get into free agency.
sure.
So next week, no show. So, make sure you're following both of us on Twitter, ParkersPucks, Canuck Clay. Stay tuned on programming notes. For the, 350 of you watching on Twitter, come over to the YouTube side and hit subscribe, hit like. We
Yeah.
appreciate it. For those of you on the YouTube side, 22 likes with 150 people in here. Get those up. And if you missed any part of the show, you can find it on your favorite podcast platform very soon, or on YouTube. You can just rewind back to the beginning, listen to it on your way to work in the morning if you'd like. Clay, any parting words this Monday night?
Well, it is May 27th, and we were still doing strong Canucks content. So this is about 6 weeks longer than we're used to. So for that, I'm very grateful. It's been a great season. I know we're still going to get together hopefully every 2 weeks, but if this is the end of our run as a weekly regular, it was a way better season than we both predicted. And I know that's going to be the case when we go back to our predictions and revisit
Yeah.
those. But yeah, no, it's been a great season. I'm very happy to do this with you. Happy for the team. And yeah, given all the dates you laid out and all the players we just talked about, almost a dozen decisions to be made. We'll find stuff to talk about over the next couple months for sure.
It's going to be a really interesting offseason. A ton of turnover for us to just keep track of. So make sure you stay tuned here. Thank you all very much for watching, and we'll see you on the 10th.